Well, hello again from here inside St James's Park, and one question I've been left with after that, and something I've just debated with my colleagues downstairs in the press room, is how are Newcastle United 10 points behind Spurs in the Premier League after that 4-0 victory that, I've got to say, for a team who had 27% possession, that was Newcastle, I've never seen a side be so much in control of a fixture. I looked at the possession stats at the very end there and I couldn't believe it. I thought it was a misprint, and then you think back over the game and you think, wow, Eddie Howe really has done a job, and he's done a number on Ange Postecoglou, and that there for me today was a victory for Eddie, for the manager. And I say that because he's gone into the game again with 11 players missing because of injury, all the other reasons we've spoken about so much. 6 of the players who started there today were here at the club pre-takeover, and yet they've performed the way they have, whereby it was a throwback to last season where they looked like a Champions League team. They looked so superior. That's not easy for me to say. They looked so Tottenham's defence there, spluttering and coughing and falling and all the rest of it. Anyway, I looked so superior to Spurs in almost every department. Almost every department? No, I'll correct that. Every department. And like I say, for Eddie Howe to devise a game plan whereby they changed formation, so they've gone with the 3-4-3 with some unfamiliar personnel in unfamiliar positions, and they've allowed Tottenham to have the ball, they've allowed Tottenham to lose the ball, and then they've allowed that front three playing together for the very first time. Gordon, Isak and Barnes, Barnes, Isak, Gordon, the notorious BIG, if you want to call them that, they were absolutely tremendous. And I thought from the first 10, 15, 20 minutes, you got a feeling that they really were going to cause Spurs havoc, and so it proved. Yes, they had to wait until the 31st minute for the goal, but I just thought the game plan was so clever. And, they made it look easy at times, the way they did expose Tottenham's ridiculously high backline. But that's not easy to do. Tottenham are a good side. They're 5th in the Premier League. They look set for Champions League football this year, if that extra position does extend to 5th. Yet Newcastle, as I've said once already, I'll try it with a little bit more success this time, Newcastle just looked a better team, so superior to them there today. And the reason I give the credit to the manager, as much as there are so many brilliant individual performances, we've got to get to that, the merit stars weren't easy. The reason I say that is I did some radio before the game with TalkSport, and within that section they asked me about the pressure on Eddie Howe and any sort of noise around that, and what's been said in terms of the hierarchy and their support or otherwise for the manager. And I said, guys, I was on there with Stuart Pearce, and I said, spend an afternoon inside the stadium, talk to us reporters who work this beat on a day-to-day basis, go back to the old-fashioned values, if you like, when you gauged unrest or uprising or dissent or support or whatever you want to call it, by what you actually experience and feel by being in the ground, by talking to people on the ground like myself. There's no pressure here on Eddie Howe. It is a noise created fundamentally by social media for me, and I've been strong on that for a while now. Yes, it doesn't mean you've got to agree with everything he does, and Eddie Howe has made mistakes this season, but he's learned. He's still a young manager. It's his first season in the Champions League. It's his first season juggling multiple competitions, with this level of player, and that there today was evidence of how he has improved in this short period of time, even as a manager. To look at what he had there today, you looked at the 2 team sheets before kick-off, and you would have made Spurs favourites. I was comfortable saying that before the game. I looked at Newcastle's bench, there was nothing there at all. And for me, I've said this many times, games now in the modern era are won with 15, 16 players. Newcastle had 11 players there, 12 at best if you throw Tino Livramento in. Lewis Hall wasn't fully fit on the bench, so they were always going to have to win it. For me, inside the first hour, they're going to have to do the damage whereby they got to a position that they weren't like they were against Everton, a 1-0 lead going into the final half hour. Everton made changes, Newcastle couldn't. Newcastle lost, what should have been a deserved victory based on the first hour of play. Here, they got the job done before that. And they did it in a way that was ruthless, it was clinical, it was efficient, and it played to the tools that they had, and it exposed those weaknesses of Spurs, like I said, with that ridiculously high backline. And coupled with all of that, they just wanted it more. They were just hungrier, they were just braver in possession, they just had more quality. In the end, you walk away from it thinking they've just got better players. And the point I come back to is Newcastle do have elite players. Yes, there's been a lot of narrative this year around Newcastle having to sell, to buy in the summer and go again and trade and everything Darren Eales and Dan Ashworth has said. Well, I'm sorry for me, Newcastle have got a trio there in Bruno Guimaraes, Anthony Gordon and Alexander Isak. They are elite international Champions League players. Newcastle should not be thinking about selling that three. They should be building the entire team around that three players. And that there was almost a throwback to last season, and even the season before when they were fighting relegation, in that it was the players who Howe has inherited and has improved, coupled with those who he's brought in, the stardust, Isak, Gordon, Guimaraes, I've just mentioned those, those players causing the damage. Harvey Barnes had a very good game today. But, around that, it just shows what a good manager Howe is, that win there today wasn't just about money and those players who they've signed, the core, the fundamental makeup of the team, like I say, was players who were already here. That is how good a manager he is. That is why I said on radio before the game, and I've said on these videos and in print at the Daily Mail for a long time now, this notion, this suggestion that Eddie Howe should be under any sort of pressure is just absolute nonsense. And that there to me today was a reminder, not that I needed one, but perhaps some people did, I don't know, a reminder as to why he's the very best man for Newcastle. But I also think it'll be both reassuring and frustrating for Eddie. Reassuring in that it was a fourth good performance on the spin, a second clean sheet in a row. They've taken now 10 points from 12 since returning from the break in Dubai. And I'm more prepared now to commit to this being a corner turned, is it to being a false dawn, like the game down at Aston Villa looks now on reflection. There were one or two of those little moments where you thought there was light at the end of the tunnel and then darkness descended again. Well, now I think Newcastle, I see no reason why in the final 6 games of the season they can't have a really, really strong finish and cement a Europa League place. Champions League has gone out. Like I said, that 10 points which I mentioned, I think that's probably too much to claw back now with only 18 left to play for, but certainly 6th position should be their absolute aim now. That is why it should be reassuring for the manager, and why I think it will be. Why is it frustrating? Well, it's frustrating because there is evidence as to why Newcastle should and could have been back in the top 4, top 5 this season, but for a little bit of better luck with regards injuries, a little bit of better luck with regards suspension, a little bit of better recruitment. I still come back to that, they didn't really build on what they really needed at times, so the many factors go into it. But I suppose what I come back to is ultimately the former of those two emotions, reassurance and frustration. The reassurance that it's okay, all is well, they've got elite players, they've got an elite manager, and an elite manager they are lucky to have for me. I've always maintained that, and that performance, that victory is, and if they can finish the season with that momentum and with that manner of display, wow, it just changes the whole mood around the place going into the summer, when at one point it had threatened to be, I would never go out. I was going to use that. I had the word toxic in my head there. That's going back to a previous regime, the previous manager. But if they'd finished it with more injuries, with results bouncing indifferently, maybe that noise online, as much as I don't think some of it is real and reflects what majority of people inside the stadium and in the press box are really thinking. That noise does exist, and sometimes that can get a little bit uncomfortable for a manager and can perhaps sway thinking among some. Elsewhere, you don't know. But I just think the way they are set now to finish the season, they're in a really good place, and that is healthy, that is positive, and that is what the manager and that is what the players needed. And it's also important as well in sending a message to the likes of Gordon, Guimaraes, Isak. There is a future for them here. There is something to build on. It was the question I asked of Eddie Howe just downstairs in the press conference here. Every week now, Alexander Isak is multiplying his value, but he's also multiplying his worth to this team and to this football club. Eddie said, he absolutely goes along with the latter, not the former. He doesn't want the zero put on the end of Alexander Isak's potential sale price. He just wants everyone to recognise when you get an elite player, and I keep on using that word, you have to keep them. Now, how did the game actually play out? We'll do that before we get to the merit stars. It was a relatively slow start, and then after 9 minutes it was still 0-0. After 9 minutes this time exactly a year ago, Newcastle were 3-0 up, of course, against Tottenham. But like I touched on earlier, I always thought they were showing that danger on the break. Harvey Barnes had a really good start on the left. Anthony Gordon looked up from it from the minute go. Alexander Isak, now he actually only had, I think it was 3 touches inside the first half hour before he got that goal. It comes in the 31st minute, Bruno wins it deep, plays it long. Anthony Gordon does brilliantly to dispossess Udogie, in that face-off of the England hopefuls, Anthony Gordon versus James Maddison. Well, for goal contributions, it's Gordon 3, Maddison 0. I thought Gordon was tremendous today. He puts it through to Alexander Isak, and he is then up against Mickey van de Ven, who is the fastest player in the Premier League. Well, there was only one of those it looked like Alexander Isak was wearing spikes and Mickey van der Ven was wearing rollerblades. Put him on his backside, he fell on the floor, puts it at the bottom corner. Brilliant clinical finish, everything we know Alexander Isak is about. Within 90 seconds, Spurs again, what is Pedro Porro thinking with that back pass? Still, it's not in terms of XG, there's still a lot of work for Anthony Gordon to do. Gordon pounces on it. Who's on his backside again? It's Van der Ven, and Gordon smashes it through the keeper. That's 2-0. Still a little bit of work to be done, because again, I always had those concerns with regards to Newcastle from the bench, and as the last half hour played out, it was a little reminder. Spurs had so much of the ball, and if they just got one goal at 3-1, maybe I'm pushing it, I don't know. Maybe it might have just got a bit nervy, but I certainly thought it reminded us how Newcastle had so little from the bench, the way Tottenham made changes and just, almost played for a long period in Newcastle's final third, even though they never really looked like doing much with it. And that was in part because of the organisation and the defensive resistance. Anyway, I'm sidetracked. It's 2-0 at half time. And like I say, Newcastle haven't had much of the ball at all by that point, but they are in total control. It really was so clever what they did. They come out in the second half. Bruno Guimaraes wins the ball again. Heung-min Son had an awful game. Bruno dispossesses him, and then he makes that pass over the top look easy. Now, it is quite easy, and it's so inviting when Spurs play a high line that was inside Newcastle's half. So Alexander Isak was onside by virtue of the fact of being in his own half, which is quite incredible. He runs through. It's 2 touches before he finishes, and I just use those words: ruthless, clinical, efficient. They applied as much to the team as they did Alexander Isak's own performance there today. That's 3-0. Like I say, the game then drifts a little bit, but there's some big defensive performances within that. I thought Emil Kraft to come in, as part of that back three. Certainly when Newcastle were having just a little bit of a wobble for 5 or 10 minute period, he made a couple of big interceptions there in the second half. Kraft was very good. Bruno and Schar was fantastic alongside him. And Schar gets his goal. Schar 2 pronunciations within 30 seconds there. I know people will pick me up on that. And Schar gets his goal. More conventional means this time, just shows Tottenham couldn't defend in open play. They couldn't defend from set pieces either. It's Gordon again with the corner. Don't underestimate that delivery, and Shar's header there makes it 4-0 at the end. Now, a point of note as well: Bruno Guimaraes avoided that 10th booking, which means he will now avoid, and he is free of suspension. So he did promise Eddie Howe, whenever it was 19 games ago, that he wouldn't pick up a book, and Eddie Howe has just said it was downstairs there that he didn't believe Bruno a word of that when he said it to him. But here we are, what is it, 4 months on, and he's managed to achieve that, and how important he is to have in that team, which brings us on to the merit marks. And will he feature? Well, in ascending order, it's an early entry for 2 players, and I can't believe I haven't even spoken about this guy already so far. Elliot Anderson and Bruno Guimaraes, they're going to share the 1 star. I've already mentioned Bruno, 2 key contributions to the goal. There was 1 pass in the second half there. It didn't lead to anything, but he's played it with the outside of his right boot in between 2 Spurs defenders. I think it was for Gordon to run onto, and we were so close to it in the press box. And you just think, wow, I just think his form of late, and I've questioned it at times in terms of, I think, in certain situations he's there, where he's running around like an all-action hero. He's found that more consistent level of performance and dependency and reassurance right in the heart of the midfield in recent weeks. So for me, I thought, Bruno, 1 star. I thought he was very good. That is a 1 star with, bells and whistles on it. If I could give them more, I would, but I'm strict in terms of the criteria. I'm not going to go 10s all of a sudden. But no, Bruno 1 star. And Elliot Anderson. Now, after I gave him top marks in the game against Everton, some people came back and questioned why I did that. They thought others were more deserving, and perhaps I should have, in that game, I think, on reflection, I should have mentioned Dan Burn more. And I would have done. It's not that I missed Dan Burn playing well that night. It was just that I would have put Dan Burn in there if Newcastle had held on to a 1-0 win, and his performance was part of resisting that late charge from Everton. And as much as it wasn't Dan Burn's fault that Newcastle lost the 1-0 lead, they did still lose it. So that is why he didn't get the merit stars. Anyway, I digress. The 1 for Elliot Anderson. I thought when he came in against Everton, he showed everything he can be to that midfield, something different, and why it's so important to keep him fit and to keep him in the team. I just think he's fantastic. You go back to what I said in America, every time I've seen him play, and I go to a lot of the under-21s matches as well, every time I've seen him and see him, I just like him. I love him as a player. I think he's a future England international. I really do. In there today, to be asked to play in an unfamiliar role, almost a hybrid left wing back, left midfield, left back at times. He's a player as well who's working his way back from a broken back, and he's been tasked with giving a bit of protection to Dan Burn up against Brennan Johnson. Brennan Johnson, who did absolutely nothing all game. Quite why Spurs didn't adjust the tactics to not give the ball to Timo Werner, who just looked like the Timo Werner, the version of Chelsea, and give it more to Johnson, where there was more space over here on the left. On the right, sorry, their right. I don't know, Newcastle's left. But, you know, perhaps that was because Elliot Anderson was doing such a good job in shutting him down. Going forward as well, you know, the little double touches, the way he gets his body there, how physical he is, the presence to pick a pass, to have a dribble. So I've spoken so much about Elliot Anderson, you might think it's worth bumping up to 3, but no, 1, that is because the 2 players who occupy the top 2 slots, well, they were just a different level for me. And this was a toss of a coin between the 2 of them. And the 2 stars, and shout at the screen and disagree below the line, please. The 2 stars, that goes to Anthony Gordon. Now, again, I go back to what I said in America. I said, and how many times do I reference this? I sat in that bar, just because it's a nice memory. I sat in that rooftop bar in Atlanta having a beer, and I did a whole video saying why I had seen and heard enough to think this was going to be his breakout season. He's now an England international. He's now, for me, you know, right up there in the conversation for Newcastle's player of the season. In fact, I would argue making favourite at this point. You know, and there today to create the first goal, to score the second goal, to create the 4th goal, and just to be a constant menace and a real, you know, not just a menace going forward. Newcastle only had 27% of the ball, so during those moments of attack, yes, he caused problems, he was fantastic, but also going the other way as well. You know, don't underestimate just how much defensive work he does and he did in protecting what was, you know, that new look system behind him. And just for me today, you know, Anthony Gordon, that there went an England elite player, which takes us on to the subject of elite players, and you know where this is going. 3 stars goes to Alexander Isak. And that is because, yes, while he wasn't really involved in the opening half hour, I just thought the nature of those 2 clinical finishes, and yes, he probably could have had more goals there. He was putting himself in positions to get chances, but the way he took those 2 goals at 2 key moments in the game, that is ultimately for me the reason Newcastle ran away with this. You know, to have a player in that position and up against, as we've said, you know, Mickey van de Ven. There was a big spread in the Daily Mail this morning, and I think van de Ven is a very good player. He's a very fast player. We all know about that. But for Alexander Isak to make the fastest player in Premier League history to look like a tugboat, it was just incredible. A real show, and I'm going to use it again, you know, it's the theme of the video, a real show of an elite striker. And that is why, and I've built my Daily Mail, Mail on Sunday, Mail Plus, Match Report around this. It's why Newcastle have to build a team around him. And to borrow from my intro into the piece, you know, if they do build a team around him, one day they might just find Mickey van de Ven buried beneath the foundations, because that really was a schooling for him. The Spurs guys, we've been chatting to them, who cover them ordinarily, say that was Van de Ven's worst afternoon for the club, and he's a player who, again, you know, is really impressed since he came in for them. So yeah, Alexander Isak, 3 stars. Now, where does this leave Newcastle? Well, sadly for them, it leaves them with a break, another 10 days, 11 days, I think, before they go down to Crystal Palace. I'll be there for that one. Now, I've actually just come back from a break, and thank you to all of those who were sending me DMs, or it was a little bit of a debate on Twitter. You know, where's Craig Hope? Where's he gone? You know, those who sent me DMs asking where the WhatsApp updates were and where the videos were too. You know, yeah, half term, so I took my 3 little boys to see Milan last week, and we then went over to Lake Garda and spent the entire time playing football, talking about football and watching Champions League and European football. So yeah, so much for a break, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Yeah, the experience at the San Siro, guys, was absolutely incredible. Milan won 3-0 against Lecce, and if you do get the chance, you know, cheap flights from Newcastle, you can get tickets as well. It's easier to become a member and get tickets at the San Siro than it is in this place. Honestly, trust me, it was €14 a ticket for the 5 of us to sit together, which was great. And I'll put a little pic on the screen now as well too. But no, thank you for the concern. I'm okay. I'm here. I'm back, and what a game to return to. Like I said, I'll be down at Palace. In the meantime, there'll be links in the description below, and stay across all of our male sport coverage. There really is loads and loads to dissect from this game. But so yeah, guys, take care, and I'll see you again next week. Okay, one last scan of this place. Bye bye.